based off some ergonomic data, weirdly from an old lecturer from my engineering degree in Sheffield, around the grip strength of older women. So we set, as a main performance thing, we have to have less than 4 Newton meters. If I can write it in a prompt, I've solved the problem. But it's harder to do it in text for me than it is just to go and build it.
Matt Batchelor studied mechanical engineering in Sheffield, then went through the RCA's Innovation Design Engineering program. In 2013, he and Nick Paget co-founded Instrument Industries, a product design studio that takes hardware from concept to production. Their client, Meadow, makes sustainable personal care products in aluminium cans. Instrument designed the product, then they built the crimping machine that makes it. It's now on the shelves in Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Tesco and Ocado. Most design studios hand the project over when the design is done. Instrument does not. They design the product, and then, if the manufacturing line does not yet exist, they build that too. Which means every engineering decision you make at the design stage, you're going to live with in the factory.
You know, we've got 10% fuel savings on like 40,000 vehicles a year from about 2014 onwards.
Then I ask about the moment that most product designers never have to face. You spent about 10 weeks living in hotels and rental cars trying to get a machine build over the line. You know, what was going on in that moment?
So for Meadow, for their launch customer, we had started building a machine to do the crimping for the safety edge before they had a customer. And then they had a customer who wanted a machine in a bit of a hurry. So we decided to build 2 prototype machines.
This episode is about what it takes to close the loop between design intent and manufactured reality. About what happens when the studio that drew the thing also has to make it work at scale.
There's no distraction. Everything is well considered. The surfacing's right. Everything about that object has been a conscious choice. And then those conscious choices have successfully been explained to purchasing and manufacturing. So that the finished thing that you buy on the shelf is what the design team intended.
This is Why Design. Matt Batchelor, welcome to Why Design. Thanks for being on the pod.
Thank you.
Not at all, not at all. It's been a long time coming. We've had a few full starts, haven't we, over the last year or two. It's like, it's a good idea. Let's do this. It's like, actually, can we do this another time? But it's great to finally sit down with you. So, we're going to dive into, as I said, your story in a moment, but. Just for those who don't know you, you're Matt Batchelor. You're a London-based industrial designer and chartered engineer who co-founded Instrument Industries back in 2013 with Nick Paget. Do dive in if I get any of these facts wrong. Instrument Industries develops physical products and manufacturing systems for startups and entrepreneurs, whilst also acting as a platform for building your own ventures.
Oh, that's good.
That right? Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I'll send you the transcript after. You can copy and paste that for the website if you need.
I was going to say, pretty much LinkedIn profiles like, oh, I should write these things I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you know, you trained as an engineer, then became an industrial designer. You now run Instrument Industries, building products, machines, and you know, even set up factories behind the scenes for brands. So, before we get into all of that, perhaps you could take me back to last year. You spent about 10
recording the podcast. So yeah. We'll get into Meadow a bit later. Yeah. We've been working with Meadow, the Nick set up with some Swedish partners back in 2020 to get their system out there. But part of the development meant not just developing the packaging concept and the dispenser, it meant also developing some of the process machinery to make the refill or pre-fill capsules, as they're calling them, in volume.
So Matt, take me back to last year. You spent about 10 weeks living in hotels and rental cars trying to get a machine build over the line. You know, what was going on in that moment?
That had been... so for Meadow, for their launch customer, we had started building a machine to do the crimping for the safety edge before they had a customer. And then they had a customer who wanted a machine in a bit of a hurry. So we decided to build 2 prototype machines, one to keep here, one to send to the customer's facility up in Peterborough. And building machines is a thing in and of itself. And we've got a small team. We were trying to get it to work. Got it into the facility, and like a lot of things, the can handling itself, so the bit we'd invented, was working quite happily. Moving things on and off a conveyor. As with any project, it's always details like a hinge or a lock or a seal that take all the time. Most of the machine will look like the first sketch. And hopefully not exactly like, it's a bit boring, but it'll be close to what you thought. But it's all the details that caused an issue. So we ended up working with a very clever bunch of guys called Huxley Bertram, north of Cambridge, who build some fairly incredible machines. And then spent a fair bit of time actually just getting the cans come off the conveyor under control. They got the machine up and running. It's probably due a visit, but it's probably done, I don't know, 100,000 cans, 120,000 cans, I think.
Oh, wow.
You can now pick said pre-fills. I got told off by Meadow's marketing team yesterday for not using the right words. The pre-fills, as we're calling them, are available in Waitrose, Sainsbury's, I think Tesco's, Ocado. So we got
Amazing.
that shipping, but it was one hell of a process, and it's just something where obviously first customer, first ever machine, you just need to get the thing out and over the line. So a few more grey hairs, but you kind of, as a small firm, you have to get things out and over the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So it ended up being 10 weeks. I'm presuming you weren't planning for it to be 10 weeks. What was the initial kind of timeline that you thought it might be?
Well, I think it's always trying to fit your customer timelines. If you don't have a customer waiting, you always end up with people saying, well, can you just do this? Can you just do this? And the project drags out. We actually, so I think the machine went back into production in, I'm going to say early October, which actually roughly when Nick and I thought we'd be finished. The trouble was it was about 4 months after the customer wanted it finished. So, and it's always, there's the time estimates and the we'll try. You can have all the plans in the world. There's some things that, we had hold-ups due to all the tariffs coming in. So all of a sudden stuff went from being in stock to having to spend a week or two trying to find automation components that had all been hoovered into the US to beat the tariffs. I've never seen a timeline slip out apart from when I was cat jockeying in the aerospace industry. You always have a customer wanting a bit sooner than you're hoping for. And then it's just a matter of trying to juggle quality and reliability and safety with delivering what they need, but also not burning your team out. Which can be hard. So I'd like to not do it again. Can't promise I won't. We're quite dogged.
At what point in that, in those 10 weeks, did you kind of get to the point where, we need to call in Huxley Bertram now, we need to call the experts to get this over the line?
I think it was when we'd got the machine in, we got it leveled. And the cans, whatever we did, whatever we adjusted, just weren't quite lining up. And then we had it running, called the team over, and then it didn't run. And the co-packer, and it's like, okay, this isn't going to be solved by one man working remotely. Being able to put it into a workshop nearer the customer site was good.
So was that like within like the first week or so, you realize, or okay. So you kind of you assess that fairly early on, put kind of contingencies in place. So for anyone that's not aware of Meadow, we usually dive into this later, but I think we're talking about crimping, we're talking about machines. Obviously, I know what you do. Perhaps we should talk about you talk about the crimping and what the is. Give us the
So what
kind
I've
of
been
top
working
level
for
of
once
the
I
product.
have a can
Yeah.
sample in. So a long
Excellent.
time ago, I think when all the David Attenborough stuff came out about plastics in the oceans,
Mhm.
Nick originally had this idea about, well, if you want people to stop using single-use plastics, put more stuff in metal packaging because everyone
Mhm.
intuitively recycles metal packaging. The trouble is that nothing that hasn't been drinkable has ever been in a drinks can. There's an implied
Mhm.
safety that if it's got a normal ring pull, you can drink it, which obviously isn't the case for, well, shower gel, body wash, personal care products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick moved to Sweden for family reasons in 2019, pre-COVID, and then met Victor and Peter, his partners in Meadow,
Mhm.
who had come from software businesses. So they were used to talking to investors,
Mhm.
used to pitching, had the contacts. So the guys managed to raise some angel funding. And then, because Nick already owns half of Instrument, there's no point having two engineering workshops.
Yeah.
Then Instrument's been subcontracting to Meadow to do a lot of the physical development.
Mhm.
It has been a bit of a consortium. A chap called Ben May and his team at Interactual helped us
Yeah.
early on. Ben's a great guy, really good, really capable team. And then Dan Barnes from Manufactured Design has been doing a lot of customer
Yeah.
facing stuff. Just where Dan's maybe got more of a consumery portfolio, whereas Instruments has historically
Mhm.
been B2B for most of our stuff. Um,
Mhm.
so we got, well, I mean, we're in on the front, I think we're not in the front page of Vogue in Spain, but we're in Spanish Vogue with our customer Batchelor
Amazing.
this
Yeah.
with a product that I started messing around with a fly press in our old factory with some
Mhm.
really crude semi-handmade tooling to develop the tool. Then we worked
Yeah.
with a firm called DRT in Ohio who invented the ring
Mhm.
to develop our end. These are
Yeah.
really, it's the most engineered thing I've worked on. Um,
Mm.
the tolerance thing.
Yeah, because I guess it's got to be strong enough that I guess you could drop the can and it not immediately just explode everywhere, but then perforated enough or kind of creased enough so that when you do click in
Yeah. A
into the
lot of
dispenser,
the hard
bloody hell.
part was actually, it took a year or two to get consistently even scores. Because if you think if the tool, which is basically just smashing the V groove in, if it's out of parallel in either of the two axes, or it doesn't go down as far.
Let's pause for a moment. If you need a contract mechanical engineer next week, the easy option is to pull a list of keyword matches and hope one sticks. That's not what we do. At Kodu, we work exclusively in physical product development. We know what good looks like at senior level because we've spent over a decade in this market. Every contractor we introduce is properly vetted, referenced and assessed for real delivery experience, not just software skills on a CV. We can move in under 24 hours, but we do not compromise on quality to do it. So if you need proven contractor support without the gamble, connect with me, Chris White, on LinkedIn, and let's move properly. Sometimes the most simple products to the kind of the layperson, are actually the most difficult to engineer, more challenging. So, yeah, well, talk us through kind of where that came from, the daisy top as well, because I found that really
Well,
interesting when
that
you explained that
was,
to me.
so I mean, yeah, a lot of the stuff that we were talking through with DRT was around, microstructures, alloys, how the metal's flowing.
Mm-hmm.
The roll that makes a can end is laminated with
Yeah.
coatings, and they managed to do some quite drastic forming without damaging that coating, still with these
Mm-hmm.
super precise features at 700 strokes a minute.
Yeah.
Um, I think the intimidating thing about the whole project has been that modern packaging, for all its faults, is really reliable for the most part, ignoring
Mm-hmm.
blister packs and things like that, which never work. Um, so it's how do we make sure that we go from it worked once or twice in front of Matt to it's going to work 10, 15, 20,000 million times without actually testing it 20 million times. Because, when you start talking those kinds of volumes, you need serious amounts of space and time to just process the material before you do any test work. So the guys, raised some funding a couple of years ago. We've had a good team both fleshing out on the design side, lots of different concepts for potential customers, and also on the machine and process development side, where what we're calling the daisy top, this crimped edge, is basically where we just have a machine that squeezes the seam onto a form anvil, and then that gives you some differentiation. It's a nice distinctive visual feature that says this is a drinks can. But also, if you're visually impaired, it's fairly obvious, or if you put it up to your mouth, it feels different to a can. So getting that in, making sure we weren't completely destroying the lacquer when we did that, took a little bit of testing. Visual consistency, tool life. There's a lot. I mean, some of it's a useful constraint. Things like the first thing we worked out was the thread parameters based off some ergonomic data, weirdly from an old lecturer from my engineering degree in Sheffield, around the grip strength of older women. So we set as a main performance thing, we have to have less than 4 Newton meters of.
Yeah, because you need your dispenser, don't you, to unlock to open the can. And like you say, if you need to be like a strong man to close it,
from safety and everything else. So we've managed to keep that reliably low. And then also try and capture that so that other studios. The weird thing as well with this project is designing the design guidelines for someone else to design a product to your work. So we've had a number of design teams now working on their own dispensers. Beta Design Office did Fussy's dispenser. A firm in New York did Natulim's. There's various other people in the pipeline I can't talk about, but yeah, it's been an.
So have you guys licensed the mechanism then, or the closure, or the thread? And that's really interesting in terms of the strategy there, the model. When it comes to that kind of setup where your product's going to be manufactured, the cans are going down the line, and you're producing what you said, hundreds of thousands of kind of cans now, is it? Yeah. So potentially millions and millions of cans produced. Whereas, compared to what, Instrument has been working on historically. I mean, I've been in your studio, in your workshop, where you've got batch runs of products that you're manufacturing, assembling on site for customers. What's what was the biggest learning kind of going from that kind of, say 100 or so units of something relatively straightforward to put together, versus something that's got to perform time and time again, millions of times?
I think a chunk of it is just good process. So you helped us hire Shan, our test engineer, to help fill some of that out. And decent documentation. I'm notoriously a bit old school about making sure we always have good quality drawings, but you need to test the spec. If someone who you've never really spoken to is going to take that, pick it up, and run with it, and then only come back to you if there's problems. Geographically, with a small team, it can be tricky, where you can only be in one place at a time. You can't just constantly ship people around the world to help different customers. So trying to make sure we're being absolutely clear with what things are, doing lots of testing ahead of time and making sure the customer does it. We are lucky most products you find on the shelf do get tested for sort of stability and storage anyway. So there is a natural time blocker that is roughly in line with injection molding timelines for dispensers and things like that.
Yeah.
But it really does come down to, understanding your statistics, your confidence level. Are we passing with a 99% confidence level, having worked out what sample size you need to make sure the confidence level is just what are the chances that you're getting a positive result for the right reasons rather than just randomly by chance. So having someone who can work that out, work through the sample sizes, develop a test protocol while designing and building something else, sourcing it. There's a lot of specialisms, I guess, within the team, and understanding what all those specialisms are, and sometimes trying to make the case where I think for a lot of startups, at least in the London scene, there's only a few, I might be, where that's really on their radar because they're looking at either a lot of that work gets done in the Far East, where the NRE, the non-recurring engineering fee covers a chunk of that, or it's done in real life with lots of product returns.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the people side of things then. We're kind of, I'm skipping through my list here, but it segues nicely into something we're going to talk about anyway, and then I'll skip back to why design and the RCA after this. But she mentioned Shan. We hired Shan for you year before last now,
I think so, yeah.
It was 24? Yeah. Crikey. But it's quite a specific hire for such a small team. I mean, what's your head count now in Instrument? Is it 4 or 5 people?
On site, we're talking 5 people. 3 of them work for Meadow more directly. Instrument at the moment, for historical reasons, is just 2 of us. A chap called Amos, who's technically our production manager, but is also a very talented designer and good friend.
And let's talk about Shan joining the team. So the business quite small when I worked with you nearly 2 years ago. I think
we had
say 4 or 5 heads.
Well, we would have had Qualcomm, Charlotte, Nick, Dan. It would have been, and then my colleague Tim, I worked for in the previous life at Fiat. No, I mean, I think the team was quite designer heavy. And I think it's probably fair to say across the team, we're all good at starting stuff. Actually following through and testing in fine detail is not a natural position for many of the team.
Yeah.
So part of the role, when we wrote the job description for test engineer, was to say, well, look, we need someone to come in, help us define and follow procedures, document it well, and then report it in so that, we'll often now have our sales team within Meadow come to Shan and say, well, we've heard this. Have you seen this? Or should we have a look at this?
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. At what point did you realize that, there was a gap there that, we've talked a lot about, not on recording, but about instigators rather than finishers.
Yeah,
but
this is the nicer phrase.
Yeah. When did you realize that gap was
I mean,
there?
I think some of it comes from previous work with Instrument.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things with Meadow is how much more we've been able to do by Nick going off and then subcontracting I mean, there's obviously constraints. We have to watch out for conflicts of interest, but having someone who can advocate for a proper budget and process at board level has been absolutely priceless. That was something we found. The limits of consultancy is that you can only take so much risk on a decent
Yeah.
sized work package because it's really expensive. For the consultancy to survive, you almost have to charge double what you need because you aren't working the whole year.
Yeah.
And then it may not work. So it's a massive risk for customers. You don't want to bleed the customers dry and all the rest. So in a lot of ways, this was a way to show how we think things should be done and put our money where our mouth is, or invest the money where our mouth is. So
Well, you've got that. You knew it was going to be a long-term program, didn't you, and a long-term thing. And I was speaking to a lot of design consultancy founders over the years, and a common thread with those that are, a little bit less stressed, I suppose, at times than other founders is that they're investing 20 to 30% of their time and revenue of the business into their own ventures or correct licensing products, and to a degree, that's what Meadow is, isn't it? It's most kind of like it's guaranteed work. So the hardest thing when you're growing a consultancy is like, how long is the pipeline? So you see a lot of freelancers, a lot of consultants kind of working well in that space to help with the ebb and flow, but it's the age old kind of problem, isn't it? But so I guess having the Meadow relationship there enabled you to, or gave you the confidence to hire and
it's much
the
easier,
rationale to do it.
I think, when you're part of a longer term plan to say you need this person than if it's more of a transitory. I mean, a lot of our relationships have been fairly long term with customers.
Yeah.
But we aren't in a position to influence some of their hiring or strategy. There is still there's still a part of my job which is making myself redundant because, it's what you're selling the investors. It's a functioning standalone team.
Yeah.
It's not a team that only works if you've got this other company which you don't have any say over also working parts of it. But transferring knowledge, capturing all that, building the team, it's a long process.
And is that hiring someone like Shan, who is very process driven, it's very organized, it sees things through to the end? I guess that's had more beneficial or kind of added benefits that not just on the Meadow project, but I guess kind of keeping you guys in shape as well, as an instrument team as well. So
no, I mean,
really interesting. So on paper, someone like Shan from a huge company like Stryker, joining a tiny London consultancy doesn't look obvious. Perhaps talk us through kind of that process at the beginning where, what did you see in Shan that others might have missed?
I mean, I clearly remember in his interview, he said, I just love statistics. And that's quite a rare thing for someone to say. I had this sense, I remember when I was looking for work pre going off to do my masters, Dyson were hiring a lot over in Malmesbury, and they were looking for design engineers who were conversant in statistics because they do a lot of work based, or used to, I don't know if it's still true, building lots and lots of prototypes and trying to pull out what the difference is, which he needs techniques like design of experiments or ANOVA to really pull that out from some subjective test data. That kind of stuck with me. Wasn't super relevant for a lot of work for a while, but it's just one of those things that sits in the back of your brain. And then you start a project like Meadow and you kind of think, I think this might be relevant. It is a fair way outside my wheelhouse. I'm quite gonzo in that I'll try and learn most things. But there is a certain point where you have to say, okay, people are hiring me for this, and this is probably getting out over here.
I think you said to me, you hadn't hired anyone that wasn't known to you, or
You know,
wasn't basically an RCA pal for some time. So it's quite quite a nice experience for me, kind of working closely with you and designing that process. But you know, how was your experience of that? You know, and what kind of things um, were you looking for? Were you conscious of? You know, going into that kind of adding someone like Shan
I
or a
think
test engineer
some of
to
it,
the team.
I mean, we've joked about how many RCA grads should you have in a business, and that we're probably a little way over the maximum required. Some of it is just extrapolating from the kind of people who go off to do that, do tend to be in the starter initiator kind of group. You do get a few people who sneak through in the completer finisher kind of category. There's also just, I guess, recognizing that that kind of role wasn't what we covered there. A chunk of it is also just recognizing that we were growing outside of the scope of, we weren't, I mean, the RCA is notorious for hiring internally, which has its impact on diversity and everything else, which isn't great. You know, I can't rant about diversity in design if I'm then just hiring my mates from the masters. So, but a lot of our previous two hires really had come around when we just need someone to freelance, and then they kind of stuck around for a bit.
Right.
And then, you know, people find niches and it kind of shapes the work you take on. But, you know, this was a specialism that wasn't really represented, at least in our network at the time. May have changed with different groups. And also just, you know, it's a bigger firm. We should be casting the net a bit wider, to get the right people in and the right quality, and also trying to, I think there's a danger in some bits of startup culture that they hire from prestigious London institutions, because you can say to an investor, "Oh, I heard from Imperial." You know, it's like no one ever got fired for IBM syndrome, when
Yeah.
actually that might not be the right kind of person, or it might have just been the wrong person from that institution. Whereas casting the net more widely, I think before we got involved, we even had a look at things like, you know, some of the early AI tools where you could feed the job description in and just look for coding. You know, is it masculine, feminine coded? Are you being
Yeah.
tech bro um, type people, which isn't what we want to
Yeah.
do. And making sure that, you know, we were putting it publicly so that people could look at, you know, find a wider berth. What that didn't do from the DIY approach was that first level of screening, being inexperienced, where it's that thing of, you know, having the time to sit down as a team and say, okay, we're looking at this band of experience. This person might be outside of that, but they might be a little bit too inexperienced, or, you know, vice versa. And just trying to get some kind of feel on, you know, if you don't have a diverse range of people applying, you're never going to hire a diverse team. So making sure we've got
Yeah.
step zero right. And then going back to really hiring and doing people is a profession in itself. You can DIY a bit,
It's
but
oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. You know, most recruitment is done through word of mouth. Something it's one of those made up stats, but it rings true. You know, 90% of roles never make it to a job board or some kind of advertising, and you know that feels about right. And you look at kind of how you've built Instrument, kind of largely through, you know, bringing in a freelancer in to do a body of work. They turn out to be awesome, you know, and then they end up kind of sticking around doing something else. And before you know, it makes sense to offer them a full time role. But you know, in essence, that's a really long interview, isn't it? You're getting to know people. But I think the one of the dangers of doing it DIY, where you know you're branching out from your known network and you're relying on advertisement and going out to places like LinkedIn, etc., is that CVs are generally kind of, they're only telling you part of the story, and even though we can customize them to an application, you know, there's the applicant's got to choose the wording, choose the language they put on, and if they're not RCA or Imperial, and then they're not using that language that resonates with the RCA crowd. Just as an example, you might overlook someone that is genuinely awesome, and you can only get to know that. AI has this problem as well. We've got all these AI tools that will find candidates or people, profiles, and but it has a terrible job of matching, especially in physical versus digital. Gives me hope that I've still got a career, over the next few years. But it's just top level. It's keyword matching. It's a little bit more sophisticated than just keyword matching, because it's using
with
kind
tone of
of
voice and stuff, you're looking at people like us on steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a real danger that people who only talk about themselves, as Nick does or as I do.
Yeah.
We do have some benefit in having a slight difference in worldview, but you can also, you look at some people, coming in for either placements or fresh graduate jobs when they send a CV in, and you can almost sense their, some careers departments are really tone deaf. They will tell people, give people exactly the same advice for any job, and you kind of think, well, different bits, and then just so much filler. Some people have got so many extracurricular activities on their CV, and it's great that you do other stuff.
It's with AI is great. I use it. There's AI integrated into the recording software we're using today to make it easier to edit. There's AI I can use to summarize conversations I've had. It's a great tool when used properly. But with when you've got candidates en masse who are using tools like ChatGPT to edit their CV, their application to match the job description, then it just becomes noise again, because every single kind of application looks exactly the same, because it's pulling out the must-haves, the things that are going to supposedly grab the hiring manager's eye. And then, but actually it's about, understanding the market, understanding the people, and when you do get hold of that person, it's about, what story we've got to tell here. Because, if this person is an applicant, they're applying for work, they're probably applying for a bunch of other things, because it's become even harder to get work as an applicant because there's so much noise. So how do you grab their attention and, excite them? For me, it was really easy working with yourself and Meadow, because there's a genuine mission there. There's a story. There's some real kind of tangible technical challenges to get stuck into, and impact that someone like Shan could have. But you don't often get to that point if you're just reviewing hundreds of CVs or resumes that are sat in your inbox, because who's got time for that?
It's also there's cutting through the noise. Some people on LinkedIn, they sound really intimidating. They're doing this, and they're world class doing this and this. You think, wow, where do they do? I need to find. No, they're still a student, which is fine. There's an element of learning to sell yourself, but it's so hard to cut through the noise. And I'm sure half of the rest of the class is thinking, "Oh, can I say that? Yeah, so-and-so saying that. Should I be saying that? Am I standing out? Am I losing out?"
Absolutely. Look, what's changed since Shan joined the business? Then what's you think back to your time pre-test engineer. What's been the biggest change for you?
I think coming in from a bigger company, when Meadow is dealing with bigger companies as well, neither Nick nor I, other than freelancing for other small studios for a little bit, hadn't really we hadn't been consultants before. I started my career at Fiat Tractors out in Basildon. Nick worked at the start of his career for a printing equipment OEM in the Bay Area. So actually having someone who can, handle a bi-weekly phone call with a big technical partner an investor, as it turns out, and talk big company language and structures and actions, is really, when we talk about different cultures, there's a different kind of time scale when you're dealing with a mature firm. And if you're too scrappy, and I'll get to it in a bit, they're like, oh, what's this guy doing? So that's been big. And I think just having someone, we've got 2 members of the team, Amos and Maria. Amos works for Instrument, Maria contracts to Meadow, who've just been running chemical compatibility testing with the cans. And just having a third person just to help structure some of the reports so that we can start to interrogate it as a big result set rather than a set of independent reports. Someone who can structure data and pull stuff around, and then also explain why we're doing it and how we're doing that to the rest of the team is really key. Because then the confidence rubs off because we've spent the time and the money on getting good quality results. Then the sales team know that they're not just bluffing, and that we can for these kinds of things. Or they can also say, well, be careful with this aspect because it might cause an issue. So, there's a whole move, I think, internally to bring in a little bit more structure, consciously to change into a bigger, more mature team within Meadow. And doing that is a big part of it. There's a time for scrappy and getting things off the ground. And we've done that. We don't need to keep doing it that way. So, yeah.
And what's been the, on the flip side, what's been the toughest leadership lesson that you've had to learn? What building this and bringing someone on who does finishing stuff?
I think delegating stuff, particularly when you're really busy with a machine build. I struggle a bit with context switching at the best of times. If you're tired and under stress and just trying to remember what everyone else is working on. Meanwhile, the tools, everything's also changing. We've been part of the government program called Made Smarter to get manufacturing businesses to be more productive with digital tooling. And a large chunk of that is planning training. But actually, everything else is constantly being updated. Or someone's just slapping AI onto something badly considered. You're using up someone's change tolerance and educational sort of bandwidth on stuff that you had no plan to do. So actually just trying to protect the core of what we're doing, which hasn't really changed that much, but still be able to communicate with each other, file stuff away in the same way. It's really basic stuff. But it seems to get harder and harder with all these new tools in a weird way. I'm worried I'm just turning into a grumpy old man. But
well, we all are, I think.
But yeah, it is structuring stuff so you can delegate it nicely when a lot of it's been in your own head for a while, pulling it out and documenting it so that someone can run with this bit, someone else can run with this bit, is a job in itself.
It's difficult to make time for that when there's so many other things that you feel that you've got to do as well. But if you can master delegation, master kind of giving up tasks that other people are going to do better, it's freeing. But it's tough to actually make the decision to do that. Let me interrupt for 30 seconds with something most hardware founders learn the hard way. The skills that get you from prototype to product are not the same skills that get you from product to scale. That transition is where leadership matters. At Kodu, we help physical product companies hire senior leaders who can formalize roadmaps, build world-class teams, and align product with commercial strategy. Director, VP, C-suite. If you are entering a new category, raising capital, or professionalizing your product function, this is not a hire to rush. So find me, Chris White, on LinkedIn, and let's talk before you make the call. Well, tell us how, Why design? What drew you into? Because you did mechanical engineering and then industrial design, didn't you? You kind of
Yeah.
took that path.
I mean,
What drew you into it?
basically, it was more a question of finding the right job title.
Mm.
You know, when I was a child, when I was a kid, going proper Essex, but when I was a child, I was either drawing or playing with Lego.
Mm.
My dad was a design engineer at the start of his career. Actually went more off into the management route as I got older. Um, my dad's dad owned a sort of a garage and engineering business. They'd both built their own wooden sailing boats.
Uh-huh.
My mum had helped when she first met my dad build his sailing boat, built a couple of extensions. So, you know, from an early age, the world was always quite plastic. If you didn't like
Yeah.
it, you'd just get your chisel out and change it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to um, a grammar school in Essex, a state grammar school, which was good, but at the time it was very academic focused. They were measured on how many people they got into Oxbridge.
Uh-huh.
Design was, we had very good teachers, Mr. Otcliffe, Ms. Owen, who, you know, encouraged me, but
Uh-huh.
design and art were seen as hobbies. They weren't the real thing you got a job doing.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, knowing that my dad had had a career designing stuff as an engineer, is like, well, we'll go and study engineering then. And ended up in Sheffield. I literally got off the train. At the time, engineering wasn't a super competitive thing to get into.
Uh-huh.
This was the late 90s, so London wasn't quite as glossy, but was still quite expensive. And I just got off the train in Sheffield and thought, yeah, I could live here. And it turns out I was right. It was quite a dry degree in terms of, at the time, I don't know if it's changed.
Uh-huh.
It was very much theory based. And I kind of missed the more expressive output. My flatmate Toby, sadly he died a couple of years ago, was a very good architect. And he was training, and I was jealous looking over his shoulder at his drawing board at the stuff they were doing. But at the time, you know, at school, product design was kind of vaguely there, but it wasn't really,
Yeah.
you couldn't find out how to get into it. And engineering seemed like a surer bet. So I spent 4 years at Sheffield, really enjoyed it. There weren't many design jobs in Sheffield when I graduated. So I moved back to Essex, where I'd grown up. Plan was, like everyone else in the mid-2000s, was to work for a bit and then go off and see the world. But I ended up working for Case New Holland.
So you were talking about there wasn't too many
Wasn't many design engineering jobs in
arts,
Sheffield.
not design engineering jobs, yeah, in Sheffield. I'm guessing unless you wanted to get into the steel industry. I
When it
think,
was material science and R&D,
yeah,
there were the starts of some innovation stuff, but it was sort of material and
Mhm.
process heavy. They had a Boeing
Yeah.
research facility on the old airport thing. So I moved back to Essex, where I'd grown up. Thought I'd work for a year and go travelling, but ended up working as a design engineer for Case New Holland, who are an
Yeah.
arm of the Fiat Group, formerly Ford Tractors in Basildon. And it was an amazing place to learn how to be a design engineer. All the guys were ex-Ford or Marconi apprentices. You know, started out doing current production fixes on the line, proper old school technical drawings. You know, there's always a high level of output. And then did lots of hydraulic pipes. And then had my own systems, some valve gear and the tractor steps. And then I was starting to get a little bit restless. And got offered a job as an integration engineer with some new emissions stuff coming through. So it was a much broader job, sort of understanding after treatment, because off-highway vehicles had to suddenly catch up with trucks
Yeah.
in the 2010s, which was interesting. We managed to get a big change in where the company was going to try and copy John Deere, and John Deere had horrible reliability problems because of the path they'd taken. So a small team of us managed to change the course of the company across a number of vehicle platforms to using more of the AdBlue stuff, but which then saved a lot of fuel. And of course, fuel's a massive input for farmers.
Yeah.
So, we got 10% fuel savings on like 40,000 vehicles a year from about
Oh
2014
wow.
onwards. Um, so that was cool. But
Yeah.
I was missing design. Um,
Yeah.
2008, 2009 hit,
Ugh.
um, and CNH had a lot of sites, and they decided to close Basildon.
Oh no.
Um,
Okay.
I could have gone off to Modena to continue in my job, but at
Uh-huh.
that point, I'd heard about the IDE program at the Royal College of Art,
Uh-huh.
which was really to try and retrain engineers as industrial designers.
Yeah.
It's cool. And I thought, oh, I could do that. But I needed to figure out how to pay for it. And
Yeah.
then because my job was moving more than 40 miles and I had a nice union negotiated redundancy deal, I thought, oh, there's some funding. So I
Happy
took
days.
redundancy, handed all the stuff
Yeah.
over through 2009.
Yeah, you'd taken redundancy, and then enrolled on the course in
Yeah.
2009, I think.
Yeah. Well, I joined in 2010. So I hadn't
Yeah.
actually got in when I applied. I
Okay.
spent January 2010 building a portfolio, got it in, and then CAD jockeyed for a firm making bits of aircraft around the back of Southend Airport, which
Mm.
again was really interesting. While I got my application together, still had to find, because it's been 2 years of living in London, it's really expensive.
Oh yeah.
So still had to find some funding from the is it Royal Commission for the Great Exhibition of 1851, who had a scholarship for engineers retraining industrial design at master's level.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't have been much more specific if they called it the Matthew Eric
Yeah.
Batchelor scholarship. So,
Amazing.
so they got in, and then
Yeah.
joined in 2010. Met Nick,
Yeah.
who's coming in the other direction, coming in from industrial design, wanting to learn a bit more of the technology and also the business
Huh.
stuff. Nick's more entrepreneurial
Yeah.
than I am, was evidenced by the structure of stuff. Um, so I did that for a couple of years, worked together a few times, got on well. And then a year or so after graduating, um, Nick had a third business called the Polyfloss Factory that makes this sort of recycled polymer matting that is now being used to
Okay.
insulate refugee shelters on site.
Oh, cool.
So Nick did that for a year. I was CAD jockeying,
Mm.
and then we just thought this would be a bunch easier if we did this as a studio rather than two freelance.
Yeah.
So we just rolled our two freelance books together into one.
Yeah.
Joined a very early version of Makerversity at Somerset House for some studio space. Scraped some paint off the walls for our first month's rent. But then slowly got enough work in to get off the ground, get some bigger jobs in,
Yeah.
and then build it from there. So, yeah, I mean, I guess to sum up, it wasn't really a choice of, I was never sat there thinking, well, I like doing this, I don't like doing this, and I like doing,
Yeah.
maybe I should be a designer. It's like, well, there's this thing
Yeah.
I do. How do I get people to pay me
Yeah.
to go and do it?
Yeah. So instrument industries today, then, what kind of challenges are you looking to take on? What projects do you love? Anyone listening to this, if they're thinking, I might need to engage with a design and engineering consultancy, why should they choose instrument?
I think where we're trying to get to is, that fabled, interlocking where your mechanical and material and process constraint form the design
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. If you're trying to
Yeah.
design out plastic or onshore it, we've managed to onshore some work quite well where you lock in a lot of the cost in both financial and sustainability terms in the first sketch in a lot of those choices.
Uh-huh.
So being able to test something quickly, 3D print forming tools to do some metal forming,
Uh-huh.
knowing casting processes and having a supplier book is really interesting. The low volume manufacture, weirdly setting up a factory. So in between all the bits, we ended up doing some manufacture of stuff that we designed for customers.
Uh-huh.
And it's a different business model. It makes the business quite complex. But in terms of a feedback loop, it's amazing.
Uh-huh.
Because you're living with the choices you've made. You get to design the supply chain, the space it's made in, how it's fulfilled. There's a really interesting systems design job in setting up that whole supply chain.
Yeah.
So I guess those are kind of the key things.
Mm.
It would be nice to build out a few more established firms in our client book, just to give us a bit of diversity. A lot of our
Mm-hmm.
clients have been startups, which has been good and exciting because you've got a new thing to enter into.
Mm-hmm.
Can be a little bit volatile. And
Yeah.
also, I find working for more established firms, they have a higher expectation of quality. There's a risk with
Mm-hmm.
startups where you're always fighting to hit the quality you think you should be shipping. When it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no, it's good, it's fine, just ship it." You kind of, "Well, no, I don't want to let that out. I don't know what it should be."
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas as an established firm has become established because they know that.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's weird re-emerging into the world after a
Mm.
few years of just being fairly silent. We've not had a website functional
Yeah.
7, 8 years. Where
Fantastic case study there, isn't it? Especially with Meadow and the success you're having there. It's like
yeah. I
what you've
mean,
achieved.
we wouldn't sell ourselves as strategic geniuses, but before all the AI boom and COVID, we felt that we'd often lose work because we don't do the shiny renders end of things.
Mm.
You know, a concept to us would be quite a cartoony sketch of just the core of what the
Yeah.
thing is, which is great as a design process, but terrible for
Mm.
managing stakeholders.
Yeah.
Now, of course, with AI, all that work's kind of been automated by Stable Diffusion.
Mm. It's interesting because I was speaking to some guys at CES they'd had presentations from design consultancies, and they said they expected to see more AI concepts.
Hmm.
I said, "Oh, that's interesting," because that's the first time someone had admitted they wanted AI as part of the ID, the concept generation. And it's like, yeah, we want the design agency to solve problems,
Mm.
and we just want some quick, scrappy, concepts thrown at us, and then we can build on those.
Yeah.
It's like that's really, quite interesting.
I mean, there's kind of it's the donkey work
Yeah.
has shifted a bit. I mean, we still need well-built, stable CAD models.
Mhm.
There's a danger if you've got something that's basically averaging the internet out and doesn't completely understand semantics,
Mhm.
that you aren't gonna get something staggeringly new. Well, it's the same
Yeah.
complaint about everything music and everything else. Um, but at the same time, I was reading an article about how there's an idea that China isn't trying to make this God out of a box that maybe the Silicon Valley types are. They're just trying to make useful tools.
Yeah.
And if you think, I've got a film camera that has a neural net driven metering system, an old Nikon from the late 90s. And your neural net is an AI technology. We can buy
Mm.
industrial vision cameras. So these are actual useful problems. I've not found
Yeah.
LLMs particularly transformative because a lot of what I need to do the process to solve the problem.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
I can write it in a prompt, I've solved the problem. But it's harder to do it in text for me than it is just to go and build it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had the same. I'm onboarding a new consultant next week, and it's going to be my first sales focused consultant. So I wanted to design a commission package
Mm.
that would be, fair but competitive, and to incentivize her to push on. And thought, I'll get ChatGPT to help me put the spreadsheet together and kind of figure out how to put this. I spent far too long trying to configure the prompt to give me the output. It's not an overly complicated commission structure. It's just to actually get it onto a spreadsheet and work as you want it to. I ended up just doing it like problem solving and doing the logic myself. It's like, um, yeah. So I'm sure that will be replaced at some point. But
Well,
if you don't know what good looks like, and you don't know kind of what the output should be, it's so dangerous chucking into the LLM or into, the AI, the tool.
mm,
Sorry, the kind of the photo generator and stuff. It's like you're just creating kind of a veneer. It actually cracks very easily if you
Yes.
you know
It's where you
don't know
need
what it
professional
looks like.
designers. I mean, we aren't really
Yeah.
about making something pretty. It's about
Mm.
making something clear and well considered and
Yeah.
careful. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of these things is
Absolutely.
the semantics of we've thought about this, we like you as a person. Here's this nice
Hmm.
thing. And really all
Yeah.
design, industrial design and design engineering is learning to describe that so we can ask a manufacturer
Hmm.
to hit this objective tolerance,
Yeah.
and then the thing will come together and be a nice high quality thing.
Hmm.
The people running these AI firms don't seem to have an understanding of quality, whereas the better
No.
design-led firms understand that design is really how you define that quality.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, good designers are just people who can articulate why that quality is good to someone who maybe can kind of sense it, but can't see it in
Hmm.
definitive terms. I just can't
Yeah.
see how an LLM's gonna do that. I worry I'm being, "Oh, no, AI will never take my job." But, AI can't
Yeah.
find a bloody invoice in my inbox at the moment.
No.
You know?
I'm just going to finish with some quick fire questions.
Uh-huh.
So I'll just throw these at you. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. So number one, best lesson you learned from engineering that designers often miss.
Ooh, shear stiffness. Things don't fail in stretchiness, they tend to wobble and flex and bend.
Okay, awesome. Um, One hiring mistake you'll never repeat.
Ooh. I think for us, it's about clarity on our side. Don't try and approach people or think about it until you really know what you actually want.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You could put the perfect person off by not having a clear
Oh, yeah.
message. And you don't realize they're the perfect person until you've got that message right. So,
Cool.
yeah,
That was
great
like
answer.
sorry, I forgot to dip the microphone as well. I did all the
There's a
sound stuff.
danger of
I
a,
got the microphone and the space, and I got the team to cover any deliveries, and then I was locked in
yeah.
bed last night in the cold and thought,
Oh dear,
anyway,
you have done well. A piece of unglamorous experience every young designer should have.
I spent 3 days calling hotels around London asking if I can videotape their cleaners cleaning toilets. Got escorted out of 2 hotel lobbies by security, but managed to get through the Strand Palace Hotel in London.
Yeah.
May not want millions of design students going by, but they're a very friendly bunch.
Oh, great story.
And we won a red dot for that project.
Oh, amazing.
So
So there you go. Lesson one is get in and
you get in there.
get into the dirty stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, get win the red dot. What separates good industrial designers from great ones?
It's all the execution. If you walk around in an award show at what's won it, it's never, "Oh, how did I think of that?" It's like,
Mm.
"Wow, they spent some time refining that," so that it is just the embodiment of the concept. There's nothing about that thing. But really great is industrial design where they've understood exactly what the concept and the brief is,
Hmm.
haven't done anything else, so there's no distraction. Everything is well considered.
Hmm.
The surfacing's right. Everything about that object has been a conscious choice. And then those conscious choices have successfully been explained to purchasing and manufacturing so that the
Hmm.
finished thing that you buy on the shelf is what the design team intended.
Awesome. And finally, a product or system you wish you had designed.
Ooh. When the plane nerd in me, my first thought was Concorde. Because I don't think
Mm.
anyone's credited as being the designer of Concorde,
Mm.
because it's a
Interesting.
functional, it's an output of a team.
Mm.
Uh, that's a really good one. Um, I feel like I need to get back to you on that. there's been a few things where you just pick it up. Or like Sydney Harbour Opera House. I remember doing a tour of it, and there isn't a bad detail anywhere in the building. You can see why it went horribly over budget and over time scale. But every single junction and material joist and everything else is just done and sorted. The same with, I guess you could say, for the Barbican. I always feel like I should be wearing a spandex futuristic suit to walk around the Barbican.
And on that note, this has been Why Design with Matt Batchelor. No, wonderful. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We are going to wrap up now because I've got to jump onto another call. But for anyone that wants to learn more about instrument industries, best place to reach you is
come
on
and
LinkedIn,
find us in real life.
Or come and find you.
I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Website's terrible. We don't really do social media. Oh, the best thing to do is come and find us in real life and then cut out.
It did cut out. Yeah, it was really nice. So if we,
I mean, if you want to end there,
our separate ways there.
I like making coffee. I like talking. Our website's horrible. We don't do social media after the events of the last couple of years, other than really LinkedIn. And I'm quite gobby on LinkedIn. Views are my own, very of instrument industries.
Our views are our own. So I'll share the link to your LinkedIn profile, to the crappy website.
Yep. Maybe
well.
link the crappy website, then hopefully in a couple of months it'll be better, because this will go out and be really popular, and I'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a lag between recording and going out. So and then we'll also tag, if you do think of another invention you want to say, maybe pop it on the socials when we put it out. But Matt, it's been awesome. I can't wait to catch up with you again and have some of your wonderful coffee. I do implore anyone to take a tour of Instrument and get the coffee, because it's lovely. And have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Perfect. Thanks for having us, Chris.
No problem.
Cheers. Bye.
So, thanks for listening to Why Design. If this episode gave you some new ideas, share it with someone in your team who'd find it useful. And follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if you're building a product team or looking for your next challenge in design or engineering, that's exactly what we do at Kodu. We help companies hire smarter and faster, and help great talent find work that actually fits. I'm Chris White. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's keep raising the bar for design leadership. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep asking, why design?